Welcome to our lesson in Audio Video Production 1 for camera composition and movement. So in today's lesson we're going to learn about how to put things in the frame of our camera, where we should put things, and then how our camera moves, and understanding the terminology that goes along with how that works. So we're going to start out with termination, or some terms that you need to know. And the first term is, the first camera movement is tilt. What I like to do, and if you look at the video of me up here in the corner, I like to think of our eyes as being the lens of the camera. I mean, the eyes are basically, the lens to our brain and how we see things. So when you think about, your head is the camera body, your eyes are actually the lens of the camera. So what happens here is, as you move your eyes in different directions, what do you see? The camera basically follows that same technique. So our first camera movement is tilt. So if you were to take your head and you were to look straight up, you were to look straight down, that's basically what tilting is. It's making the camera move up and down. Okay? Look at our definitions there. Tilt up, oftentimes you will see in scripts and other things, TU. That's a tilt up, stands for point lens up toward the ceiling. Tilt down, point lens down toward the ground. So that's your tilt movement. Our next movement that we have is the pan. Pan is moving side to side. So if you take your head and you move to the left and you move to the right, and you can see what your lens can see as you move left to right. That's what we call pan. So we have pan right and we have pan left. And I'm not sure why this is up to the ceiling and down to the ground, because that is not accurate at all. So my slide here is incorrect. Pan right, side to the right. Pan left, side to the left. Next camera movement that we have is what is known as the dolly. Now the dolly, I want you to pretend that you were sitting on a chair and it had wheels on it. And what you basically did is you had someone get behind you and you had somebody push you in towards the subject. So nothing I can do with my head. I'm not panning left to right. I'm not tilting up and down. My head is straight ahead. And then I'm in my chair here. It's got wheels on it. Someone gets behind me and pushes me towards the person, or, towards my subject that I'm filming, or basically pulls it away. Okay? So it's pushing in, pushing out. That's what we call the dolly camera movement. An example of this that I want to show you is a lot of times, people talk about zoom, and people that use cameras for the very first time, they get really carried away with zoom. Zooming in, they're zooming out, they're zooming in, and that makes us sick. And I want you to think about this for a second. With your eyes, if you're sitting here and you want to look across the room, I can see what I can see now to as far as I can see across the room. But my eyes can't zoom. I can't physically all of a sudden make my eyes go to the other end of the room. That's not going to work. I can't do that. That's not a natural thing. Zoom is not natural. It's not a natural movement. And if we can't do it with our eyes, which is natural, then we have to have some reason to do it with the camera, because it's going to be weird doing it with the camera. So here in this little video, you're going to see the difference between a zoom and a dolly. So you're going to notice the dolly, I'm just rolling my cart or rolling my camera or moving right by these people. And then on the left, you're going to see the difference in the zoom. You're going to notice the one on the right, that's pretty typical for us. That's how we typically, work with life. If I were to start walking, moving my camera, walking towards people, I'm literally going to walk past them, but I can't zoom. I can't do that. That's not a natural movement. Not to say there aren't times when that move can't be used, but it's usually to create something that's not natural. Our next camera movement is the truck. So the truck would be, pretend you put me in my chair and someone pushes my chair to the right. Someone pushes my chair to the left, like physically my whole chair. So if you look at the camera here in this diagram on your screen, you're going to notice that camera, someone's pushing them. The camera is still, so I'm facing the camera right now, but it would be as if I were to move off the screen this way or move off the screen this way. I'm not turning around. I'm moving left to right. Okay, and that's what's called a truck. Actually, if you go on movie sets, a lot of times they will lay down on the ground. If you were to go watch a movie being filmed, they will actually lay down what looks like railroad tracks. They'll put a cart on there, they'll put the camera on there, and then they will, speed by the subject, or they will walk alongside a couple that's talking to one another. They're just going to be moving side to side. Okay, that's truck. So Dolly's going to go in and out. Truck is going to go left to right. All right, now we know we can tilt, so we can take our face and we can move up. We can tilt our camera lens up. But this method, this movement is a little bit different. It's what we call pedestal. Pedestal would be if I had like hydraulics on this chair and I could hit a button and it just took me and moved me up, or I can pedestal down. So I can pedestal up, I can pedestal down, okay? And lots of cool reasons to do this kind of shot, a lot of neat things that you can do. But notice it's different than the tilt. So if you were to sit in your chair right now, you've got your lens forward, and you were to stand straight up, you're pedestaling up. You sit back down, you're pedestaling down. Whereas a zoom, I would stay here and I would tilt up, or I'm sorry, with a tilt, I would tilt up or I would tilt down. And they're just going to give you different ways of looking at that and how that works depending upon what the scene is that you're trying to do. For example, if you're a young child and you want to create a scene through the child's eyes that you're looking up at Shaquille O'Neal, okay, an over 7-foot basketball player, and you want to make that dramatic, okay, I'm going to want to tilt. I'm going to want to see that kid lifting his head to look up at Shaq's face. Okay, I'm not going to pedestal. I'm just going to all of a sudden bounce up to his eye level. Okay, that's the difference between those moves, the tilt and pedestal. All right, so let's look at some different examples here. Here's a pedestal shot, and this is a shot from Toy Story. Notice in this shot that no head is being tilted. Well, Woody's is, but the camera, it's just, going straight up. It's not tilting at an angle. It's just moving straight up, straight down. So that's a great example of your pedestal shot. All right, those are your camera moves. So we've got our pan left, pan right, okay? We've got our tilt up and down. We've got our dolly, move in, move out, usually rolling in, rolling out, or walking in and walking out. We have left to right, which would be our truck, okay, that we would do. Those are our main camera moves that we have. And we had pedestal too that we just went over. This next rule is, where do you put your subject in the frame? So you're looking through your viewfinder, or you're looking at your LCD screen of what your lens is shooting. And basically, this is a rule that is used in almost every movie and every TV show. Watch a scene. So here's Thor. Thor's in the scene. Notice he is not centered right in the middle of the frame. So this is what beginners do. They take a subject, they put him straight in the middle of the frame. Okay? It's not really interesting because you can't see anything left. You can't see anything right. Like, it's not a really interesting looking shot that you're getting here. By moving them over to a third of the screen, you will then notice something a little bit different. So let's break this down. If you take a frame and you do a tic-tac-toe grid, so see this red tic-tac-toe board that's on the screen. If you were using rule of thirds, you would take your subject and you would put them in this area right here. You would put them in this area right here, this area here, or this area here. So if it's a small child, you can put them here. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can do this. So they've used rule of thirds. They've put Thor right here in this particular scene, right? It's kind of centered on axis with this tic-tac-toe board. Now, why is this shot so interesting? Well, everybody knows Thor, it's the hammer, right? You can actually see the hammer down here in the shot. Much more interesting than if we put Thor right here in the middle of the screen and then had to pan or had to truck left to right to be able to reveal that. This is a very interesting shot. Watch just about any movie and you will notice as they put characters in those scenes, they will almost always line them up on rule of thirds. There are sometimes creative reasons to break the rule of thirds, but as a beginning filmmaker, as a beginning person that's shooting, your own types of little movies or public service announcements, always use rule of thirds. It's a great technique, and it's a rule that's used literally everywhere in Hollywood. All right. Next rule we're going to learn is what is known as the 180-degree rule. Now I want you to look at our diagram here. We have two people. Those are people. Okay, so pretend that's a head on top of some shoulders there. We have two people there. And they are on this line of vision, if you will, that dotted line that goes across. You will notice that we are shooting this scene with three cameras. A camera on the left, a camera in the middle, and a camera on the right. What can happen is when you're shooting this scene with multiple cameras, you never put a camera across the line of vision. So notice these three cameras are great. They're in great positioning. They're following the 180-degree rule. None of them are breaking this line. But now they've decided to put a camera back here. That is incorrect. You're breaking the line of vision. You're basically going more than 180 degrees. And what's happening now is this camera and this camera could potentially be seeing this camera in their shot. Okay, so you never want to break the 180-degree rule. Unless, of course, it's some creative thing. You're doing some horror or sci-fi movie where the world's going crazy and you find some reason to do this. But typically, your 180 degree, you're going to stay on one side of the line of vision and you're not going to cross that particular line. So there is your 180-degree rule. So let's look at an example. Once again, Toy Story, 180-degree rule.
So I'm back with my friends Buzz and Woody. Meet them. Hello. So we're going to be talking about the 180-degree rule, and this is one of the only rules in filmmaking, really, and it's there so your audience doesn't get confused in terms of eye line and who's looking which way. So I'm going to film an example and show you the wrong way to shoot a scene, not obeying the 180-degree rule. We'll start with the camera here, and the reverse shot of Woody talking will be on the other side of Buzz, the wrong side. So here's what it looks like. Buzz says, "Oh, hey, what's up, Woody?" "Oh, not much, Buzz. I'm just hanging around with the toys, you know." "Yeah, I know how it goes. I've just been flying around." So yeah, they're talking, then it cuts back to Woody. "Oh yeah, well, have you seen Bo Peep around?" "No, I haven't seen her. Last I saw her was talking to Mrs. Potato about the new garden. She's growing potatoes, actually." So that was the wrong way to shoot the scene. Actually, it was very confusing because both actors, or toys in this case, were looking the same way. So you're like, why aren't they looking at each other? And this would be the correct way to film. One shot over here, over the shoulder of Woody. He's talking, and then we cut to right here. Woody's talking, and it's over Buzz's shoulder. We haven't crossed that 180, so it's looking good. So that's why we've established the 180-degree rule. It doesn't matter which side you pick to shoot from. Just stay on one side. If you shoot from this side, then stay on this side. And that happens for any conversation with actors, toys. That rule goes across all film. So in order to keep your audience unconfused and understanding who's looking at who and talking to who, the film industry has created the 180-degree rule.
All right, so you can see where that is a great rule to follow. He gave another example. Two characters are talking to one another. Do notice how weird it was when they broke that 180-degree rule. It's like, well, who's he looking at? This is strange. If you haven't noticed before, when you are watching movies, when you're watching TV shows, oftentimes they're going to, the camera is constantly cutting. They're constantly editing different cuts in there. Two people talk to each other. You just don't notice it. You're so into what's going on. Unfortunately, when you're in this class, we're going to ruin a lot of TV shows and a lot of movies for you because you're going to start paying attention to rules and how those rules are followed. And then it kind of takes your brain away from just enjoying the show, right? So, all right. The next area we want to go to for composition of our shots is how close or how far away we are from those particular shots. So, for example, here's a shot of Shrek. And this is what we call an extreme close-up. An extreme close-up, we actually use them a lot. You know, Home Alone. If you remember Home Alone, when Kevin realizes that his family is gone. I made my family disappear. You know, it's a really close shot in his eyes. His eyes are really big. We use this kind of for dramatic effect. Okay, so done in lots of different movies to show some type of effect that's similar to that. Here we have Napoleon Dynamite. This would be a close-up. Okay, why not an extreme? Well, an extreme would be close in on his eyes, close in on his nose, close in on his mouth, close in on his forehead. I don't know why you'd shoot his forehead, but It's Napoleon Dynamite, so you never know. But a close-up is pretty much going to go to the very top of their shoulders, and it's going to encompass their head. Okay, that's what we refer to as a close-up shot. All right, here we have George Clooney. This is what would be called a medium close-up. So no, it's not extreme, not in on the eyes or the nose or the mouth. Not a regular close-up because we're seeing a little bit more, of his body here as it goes just below the chest is what most people will consider to be a medium close-up. Also, pay attention down here to the abbreviations for these words or for these because you'll oftentimes see these on scripts. They won't type the whole thing out. So here in Titanic, this is what we would call a medium shot. So you're going to notice that this is right about the waist, or slightly above the waist, and then up to the top. So this would be referred to as a medium shot. This is a medium long shot. So we can see, again, the head all the way down to just above or below the knee. That would be a medium long shot. This one here would be a long shot. So I can actually see the full character in view. Now you can probably tell from these frames of where they're putting the subject in the frame, why they're doing it. Okay, again, I mentioned the scene with Kevin in Home Alone, very close up on the eyes. All right, here's a scene where Jack Sparrow is running away from, the enemy, if you will. And so we want to see everything, and we want to see the people that are behind him that are running towards him. If I do an extreme close-up here, which I could, by the way, I could show this and then cut to, that would be a pretty cool one. Look at his eyes or look at his mouth open, or we could go to a close-up where we see, his face and just basically at the top of his shoulders. He's freaking out, and then we cut back again to the long shot. So we can cut to different shots to basically show different things that we are looking at. Scene from E.T., this is what we would call an extreme long shot. So this is a very wide shot that's put into play. Compassing or flying. It's a big, got the whole moon in the shot, got the big tree, they're going global here. That's what we call an extreme long shot. All right, let's go to Hogwarts. Okay, this one is what we call an establishing shot. Now, there's lots of different types of establishing shots, but I want you to think for a moment that you're watching one of the Harry Potter movies. They are going to show a shot just like this of Hogwarts, and then the next shot might be Harry and Hermione inside in the Great Hall having a discussion. All right, the establishing shot is to let you know where those characters are. If you're watching a show like Friends, for example, the establishing shots, they're going to show outside a picture of the coffee shop that they eat at, Central Perk. They will show an exterior shot of that, and then immediately they will cut to them being inside, sitting on the couch, enjoying some coffee. You could have an exterior shot of a football stadium, and then that would cut to inside of the locker room. Now, the cool thing about Hollywood is everything, well, not everything, but pretty much everything nowadays is pretty fake, other than the actors. And even many of the actors are not real anymore with CG and the amazing features that we have to change actors' appearances inside of the computer. But pretty much everything's fake. So they might shoot an exterior of a store in New York. Well, they don't want to leave Los Angeles, fly out to New York, go ahead and shoot that shot, and then do the scene in that coffee shop. It's probably a live, real working coffee shop. They don't want to shut it down and pay the people to rent it for the day. The people are going to lose all the business. And then they're going to have noises. They're going to have distractions. They're going to have to haul their equipment out there. It's crazy. So what they do instead is they film most interiors on what we call a soundstage. So for Harry Potter, for example, there really isn't a Hogwarts, but let's pretend that there was. They shoot this shot of Hogwarts, sitting up on top of the mountain, and then they would cut to, and now they're on a soundstage in Europe, where they're actually filming the interiors. All right. But establishing shots don't have to be real places. Obviously, Hogwarts is not a real place. This is 150% digital. Unless you go to Universal Studios and it looks kind of cool, and see it there. But this is a shot where it could be digital. It's exterior, but it's basically telling you where and gives you an idea maybe even of when this particular thing is taking place. One of my favorite places to see these is on Saturday Night Live. So if you ever watch Saturday Night Live, they're on these small sound stages. It's actually pretty small together in New York. They're going to do lots of exterior shots to lead you to believe they're somewhere else, but they're not. They're right there in the studio. But the establishing shot is going to tell you right off the bat this is where they are. All right, we'll stick with Harry Potter here. You guys saw this actually in the Buzz and Woody 180-degree rule video, but this is what's called an OTS, or an over-the-shoulder shot. So you will notice that they place the camera over one character's shoulder, and then as they will film basically all of Harry's parts talking here. They will actually both be talking. Voldemort will be talking to Harry. They'll be going back and forth, but they're only filming Harry right now. Then they'll yell, cut. They'll move the camera over behind Harry, and hopefully you know whether that would be the left shoulder or the right shoulder. If you paid attention to the 180-degree rule, it's going to be over his left shoulder if we're facing Voldemort. And they're going to put it over his shoulder, and they're going to do the scene again. And then this time, they're doing the whole scene. Harry's doing his lines, Voldemort's doing his lines, but they're recording basically Voldemort over Harry's shoulder. And then they're going to edit that scene together to jump back and forth between the different shoulder shots. So that's an over the shoulder. Here we have what is called a profile shot. So just a profile of the character. Okay. This is Morgan Freeman. Just wanted a shot that's kind of showing his profile. He's on the phone. You know, are we going to get into that conversation? We don't know, but this is just a profile shot that, hey, Morgan Freeman's on the phone. This is what we call a subjective shot. Oftentimes, this is also called a POV. And if you have a GoPro, you might be calling this a POV shot a lot. I actually like to call it POV more than I like to call it the subjective shot. But it's basically the subject's point of view. That's why it's called the subjective shot. So in this case, this person is riding, it appears to be very, very fast on their mountain bike. And they probably have the GoPro on their head. And they are capturing this in their point of view. So it's actually what the person on the bike is actually seeing. Tons of POV shots are used in Hollywood. Why? Because they want to make you feel like you are that character. They want to make you feel like you're experiencing that yourself. All right, scene from Jurassic Park here. A reaction shot. Now, if you've seen this movie, and this was, I'm old, okay, so I was just first married in my early 20s when this movie came out. Guys, nobody had ever seen dinosaurs like this on film before. I mean, Jurassic Park was the first movie to really take advantage of what the computer could do and the processing power that it had, which back then wasn't very much. It's you guys have in your homes now, more than likely, more processing power than what they had when they created the first Jurassic Park. But basically, these characters are really looking at nothing. This is the scene where they're seeing the, they've made it to the island, and they're seeing the dinosaurs for the very first time. And so it's a reaction shot. You know, they're going to show a very wide shot of all these dinosaurs. Some of them are walking out of the water and they're walking on land. These two characters are seeing them. The camera's going to go to them and we're going to get their reaction. So we're going away from that main scene and their reaction. And I will tell you what, if pretty much in any movie today, like really all of your Marvel movies, most of those are completely shot on blue and green screens. And the actors are having to act and react to things that aren't really happening or that aren't really there. So amazing acting jobs, because really they're faking it. These guys didn't really see dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. They were put in digitally. All right, we're going to talk a little bit. We kind of been talking a lot about film. Let's bring this back and talk about what things look like in broadcast. Yeah, a lot of those terms are going to be the same, but in broadcast, you're probably not going to use rule of thirds when you're shooting an anchor. You're going to center them up in your shot. So don't take a lot of these rules, you know, absolute 100, you got to do this all the time. Because when you're in broadcast, we're going to break some of those rules, okay? We're reporting the news, we're reporting what's going on, so we're going to break that a little bit. So here you'll notice this character is centered on the shot, not using rule of thirds, which is perfect. Maybe they're interviewing them, you know, they're an interview subject or whatever. But the first thing you need to know is headroom. People have a hard time with this, okay? If you notice the lower picture on the right, that is about the correct headroom. I might even do a little less headroom, bring him up a little bit higher in my frame. If you look on the one top left there, you're going to see too much headroom, okay? I mean, all you got is a floating head down there at the bottom. But you just need to know this term. When we're in the studio, we'll use it a lot. Hey, you got too much headroom. Hey, I need a little more headroom. You'll get that call from the control room, and just so you know what they're referring to. On our cameras here, you can do a couple of things in the studio. Our cameras are on pedestals, so you can actually pedestal up, pedestal down, or you could also loosen the tripod and you could do a tilt to give you more or less headroom. All right, the next one is Noseroom. So you have a character that is speaking, and let's say you did put them in rule of thirds. This isn't quite rule of thirds. This guy's getting cut off a little on frame. But you notice when he speaks at the top picture, he's got plenty of nose room. Plenty of room from the tip of his nose over to the edge of the frame. And maybe there's something happening out here, but there's room for stuff to develop here. This shot is bizarre. There is no nose room at all. Looking off frame, it's like, what's the point of this? The only reason I can see doing a shot like this is maybe he's ignoring his girlfriend over here. I'm not talking to you, and turns around and looks the other way. Students have trouble with this all the time. They'll shoot interviews and they will put the subject way over here facing off screen. Don't do that. Put them in rule of thirds. So if we drew our tic-tac-toe board here, it'd be somewhere in this area here, but have them facing this direction so that they're actually looking to the left. So plenty of nose room. So nose room is the distance between your nose and the edge of the screen. Okay, you want sufficient nose room to be able to do that. It's also called lead room as well. All right, let's look broadcast, how we put people in a shot. This could also be film, but here we happen to have two NBC5 news anchors. Two people at the desk, we call it a two-shot. Really difficult, right? Two people are in the shot. All right, I'm about to blow your mind because I'm going to show you a three-shot. Crazy, right? There's a three-shot. This one happens to be NBA TV. They're probably analyzing, it looks like the Lakers and the Heat. They had their two main anchors there, and then probably an analyst, a commentator. In news, this could be, these are the two main anchors, and maybe the weather or the meteorologist comes over, or a reporter comes over, or the sports anchor comes over. Or there could just be three anchors at the desk too. Usually two people are going to guide the discussion, or one person's going to guide the discussion, and then they're going to have guests. So let's blow your mind again. Here is a four-shot, four people in frame. Again, you had your two main anchors here. This happens to be your meteorologist over here. Could be sports. I don't remember what he is. Miss Freeman's going to get mad at me because she worked at NBC5 and she knows all these people's names. I don't, because I don't always watch NBC5. I channel surf and look at a lot of other different ones. But there you can see a four-shot. So you got a two-shot, got a three-shot, you got a four-shot. We keep going with that if we put more people in frame. All right, let's change course here of how a lens can help us create some really dramatic or really cool looking effects. What I want you to notice, this technique here is called depth of field. It is created using what is known as your aperture. We're not going to go into that in this video, but basically in the camera there is a hole in the camera that lets light into the sensor. It can be a really small hole or it can be a really big hole. By doing that, you're actually going to change your depth of field, or what is known as your aperture. So what you're noticing here in this scene from Joker, and I'm going to give this away because it's on a slide coming up, but you're going to notice that the Joker is in focus. By the way, is this a close-up or an extreme close-up? I would call this a close-up. Some might argue it's extreme, but I would want to go in tighter for this to be an extreme close-up. But you're going to notice that the background is completely blurry. So what's in focus here is the subject, is the character, is the item they want you to see, and the background is blurry, okay? So depth of field lets us change between those two. It's basically a distance thing. So let's look here in this one right here. This is a deep depth of field. The camera's depth is as large as possible. I can zoom in and out. It doesn't really change focus, but nobody really stands out here. Everyone is pretty much in focus. Even this guy in the back isn't too far out of focus here. Really deep depth of field here, but really kind of gets you into the whole scene. And then we go back. This is similar to what the Joker one was. So we have Miss Seyfried here. Shallow depth of field. She is in focus. The background is out of focus. Now people will move back and forth between that. They might start with her in focus, and then all of a sudden she goes out of focus and the person in the back over that pool table becomes in focus. Why are you doing this? Again, it's just trying to be a good storyteller and take the story where you want it to go. Maybe we want to see Amanda Seyfried here and she's worried about something, and then all of a sudden we go, oh, here's what she's worried about. It's in the background. Don't know. There's lots of different ways to put this together. But that's your depth of field. You have a shallow depth and you have your other. All right, coming up to the last few items in our lesson here, and we'll wrap this thing up. This is super important. It is not a camera movement. It is not a composition kind of thing. But I like to throw it in here and talk about it with camera basics because it's something that beginning people shooting video really struggle with, and it's known as white balance. And you'll get to see later a different video, not today, but a different video that is going to show you and talk to you about light temperatures measured by what's called Kelvin. We're not going to go into that right now. I just want to talk about colors, okay? But colors of light, you need to understand, do change how a subject looks and how your lens and your sensor and your camera interpret that. What is wrong with the picture at the bottom? Well, you're going to notice that this kid is pretty orange, all right? I only know a few orange people. Donald Trump, he's orange. I don't know why. I don't know what product that he uses that turns him orange. And this is not a political thing, either against or for Donald Trump. But he does. He's got that orange tinge to him all the time. For him, that's natural. So he would really be difficult to shoot video of. An Oompa Loompa would be another problem. You know, their face is supposed to be orange, right? And got that look to it. But usually in video, we want to see colors the way our eyes see colors. Now, the amazing thing is that no matter what color the light is, I want you to think if you go outside and you have natural sunlight, or the clouds are covering the sun, but you still have natural light from the sun, you come inside. Now, the room I'm in right now, this video looks absolutely terrible. I'm at my home shooting this. I have terrible incandescent light fixtures. They are orange. I've done a little bit of white balance to make myself look a little bit better, but these lights in here, they're pretty orange. I go into school, in the classroom, I'm dealing with fluorescent lights. They tend to put off more of a bluish color. The oranges, we call that warm video. The blues, we tend to call that cool video. Cold, cool, if you will. Kind of that blue. So we got warm from the sun, cool from the blue. You know, I don't know, from ice. I don't know where blue comes in there, but you get the idea. So we got a little problem here. If you're shooting video of this young man, he happens to be in a little restaurant that probably has some incandescent lights above him. You start to shoot, and guess what? He looks completely orange. So what you need to do is you need to accommodate for that in your camera. So what you're going to do in your camera has some white balance settings that are built into it. Both film cameras and video cameras both have these. So you go into your video camera and you are going to change your white balance setting and your color temperature to match incandescent lights. When you do that, your camera will automatically try to white balance that. It will say, hey, I know what color lights you're talking about. I'm going to try to adjust it so that that looks more natural. Same thing if I go into fluorescent lighting, outside into the sun, there's cloud, maybe the sun isn't showing, the clouds are covering, it's an overcast day, all different lighting temperatures, if you will, for color. So, once you do that, once you white balance your camera, then what's going to happen is it will look a lot more natural, like that kid does up there at the top. So the slide's going to tell you the camera needs to be told what is white in order to see colors correctly. Now, what does that mean? Well, I just discussed some automatic white balance features. I can go in and tell it what kind of lights that I'm shooting in. Your camera will adjust for those lights and set the appropriate Kelvin temperature. However, you don't always have to do this. I am not a fan of that automatic white balancing. I want to white balance myself. So what I'm going to do in a scene like this is I'm going to take a white card with me. Now, some of these are very expensive because you're going to buy ones that are perfectly calibrated white for the correct color temperature. But guys, here at school, at home, you can use a white piece of paper out of your printer. You can use a white piece of foam core poster board. Those will work just fine for what we're doing with our amateur video. So what you would do with this kid right here is that you would have this kid hold the white card or the white piece of paper in front of him. So you would literally pull that up, hold it in front of him. You will zoom in on the white with the camera and you will hit the manual button for white balancing. It will automatically, the camera will go, oh, that's white. That's what white's supposed to look like. And it will adjust its temperature to account for that lighting and make your scene look pretty good. You're going to white balance a lot. Every time you move your camera to shoot something different, the lighting is going to be different. You're going to want to white balance. So that's critical to get your video to look the way your eyes actually see it. All right, so that wraps up our lesson here on camera basics in dealing with composition of our shots, how we are able to move the camera in our shots, talking about some features like the 180 rule, the rule of thirds, dealing with some features like depth of field, and then finally we talked about white balance. So you'll read these. If you want any more information, check out your textbook. You should have already read chapter 4 in the textbook on this that explains them. I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail in this video. Make sure you study the things in this video because they will be on your upcoming exam, and there will be some things from the video that are not in the book. So make sure you pay attention to those. All right, guys, have a great day.